This is the kickoff for the Bishop Launch Project, and very excited to have all of our panelists here, but I'd like to introduce a person that you know rather well, Dwayne Todd, who's the Vice President for Student Engagement and Success. There we go.
There you go.
All right.
Hi, thanks, Mindy. And Mindy's breathing, that's okay, you don't need to. Mindy's breathing a little easier because there were some traffic issues, I understand. I didn't even meet both of you, so thank you for being here. I think actually some faces look familiar from prior events. We're really thankful that you made the effort to be here tonight, and I know it was not easy for some of you in particular. Thank you. So I want to welcome, first of all, employers. It means a lot to the university that you care enough about student learning that you will make the time to be here, prepare some remarks, and then answer some questions and things. And when you all have lives outside of Ohio Wesleyan and jobs that keep you very busy, you will know that this is indeed a sacrifice that people make to help you learn and to be a part of your growth. So I hope that you will share your thanks with them as the evening goes on. Also, students, I want to thank you also because you don't have to be here either. Nobody's making you do this. You're doing this because you want your future to be as bright as possible. You want a step ahead. You want to be successful in your career. And some students just somehow, I guess, magically think that's going to happen for themselves, and others like you take the steps you need to make sure that you are in the place you need to be successful in that regard. So congratulations to your commitment there. I wanted to mention that we are continuing to put plans together at Ohio Wesleyan to further our efforts to have a best-in-class career services office. I want you to pay attention as the year unfolds. We are working to really increase our resources in career services, both staffing and money, programs. We're going to call it Career Connections, I believe, and it will entail a lot more people who will be available to you to help generate internship opportunities for you, to help match you with the right opportunities to meet your goals, to help connect you with alumni who are all over the world and I'm telling you, they're eager to help you. They're very eager. In fact, they're always knocking on the door saying, what can I do, what can I do? The Bishop Launch Program is an example of the kind of programming that we will continue to unroll here at Ohio Wesleyan that will do just that, to help connect you with successful people like these and many, many, many others who are proud of their alma mater and wanting to help you be successful after you leave here. So that's a major part of it, is helping expand your networks. It's also, we're going to be doing a lot more to help you think really deeply and intentionally about what you want in your life. There's some sort of philosophical pieces of that. What is your vocation? What do you feel, your purpose is in life, but also to connect you, with how you might make a living at doing some of those things. And hey, Barbara. Hi, Barbara, everyone. Barbara McLeod. Thank you. And so those important conversations are a part of helping you make choices about what you're going to spend time chasing, if you will, those opportunities, because you can't chase everything. So let's help you really hone in on what is going to meet your long-term goals, both professionally and in your life. So the Career Connection program is going to be very exciting. We can't wait to kind of give you more details about it. It's still shaping up, but pay attention if you would. So again, I want to thank you for participating in Bishop Launch. This is, again, a great step to help you be at the front of the pack when it comes time to start applying for stuff and putting your name out there. With that, Mindy, turn it back over to you.
Okay, so a couple of notes on the way the program is going to work tonight. We're going to spend about 25 minutes with our panel. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. I'll ask them their couple of questions in a minute, and we'll take a couple of questions from the audience, from all of you, and then we're going to have a dinner. Each table that you're sitting at has a table topic. So this is the leadership table. This is professionalism, work ethic. I can't see what's over there. Think your teamwork and collaboration analysis is over there, I believe. There's another teamwork and collaboration and communication. So each one of these employers is going to be sitting at a table with you, talking about this competency. Remember when we signed up for Bishop Launch, I talked about the 8 competencies. These are 5 of them that employers and educators think are necessary for you to be ready to go to work. And everything that we do in Bishop Launch this year is going to help you to develop those competencies or know that you have them and be able to tell your stories. So at the table, the employers are going to be talking with you about, when I ask a question about leadership or about communications, this is what it means to me. These are the kinds of answers that I'm looking for. And when you come to work for me, this is how you demonstrate that. And then also we want to talk about, well, how do you get that here at Ohio Wesleyan? So between some of the faculty staff here and myself and Josh, we're going to try to help you figure that out as well. Because you don't have everything to start with, but you get a lot of really great experience here that transfers over. Your challenge is to know what that is and then be able to find the words to say, I have this ability, I have this skill. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is ask, I'm going to start with Mitch, who's an alum of Ohio Wesleyan, and I'd like each of our presenters to say, who you are, we can see what organization you are with and what your position is, but also here are the questions. Where did you go to school? What was your major? What was your first job out of college? And then what did you do in college, either through a class or an activity or an internship, if you had one, that benefited you, that you think you took with you when you went to work? What transferred over? And then if you went to graduate school, you can say you did that also. And then after that, we'll take a couple of general questions. So be thinking about some questions that you would like to ask our presenters. Okay, please.
Yes.
We can start with you, Mitch.
Well, good evening. Can you hear me? Good. So my name is Mitchell Bryant. I am a bishop. I graduated in 2007, and that it's getting longer and longer now, so that's cool. I am the assistant vice president for Big Brothers Big Sisters right here in Delaware. And see, I've already screwed up. What are we asking here? So my major was sociology and anthropology. And my very first job out of school was working for an organization called Help Me Grow. So we worked with kids from birth to 3 that had developmental delays and disabilities. When I was in my SOAN major, I took a lot of different classes, one specifically about family, and then another one cultural anthropology and learning about urban society. So that was kind of like this path that I wanted to go on. I wanted to work with families and specifically kids. I think when you come to Ohio Wesleyan, you're like, I want to change the world, and that's exactly what I wanted to do, but I wanted to work with kids because you can't change adults' minds. It was my opinion at the time. I think it's still true as I'm getting older. My mind is not changing. But I had that opportunity. One of the many things that I did while I was here, I was part of WCSA. I was also part of Delta Tau Delta fraternity. And at the time, in that fraternity, our philanthropy was called Adopt a School. And so we went into schools and helped them after school with homework. And so I got to see that social services side of things. Eventually, throughout my 10-year career so far, I was able to get back into something very similar to that. So very excited. I think that kind of helped me to learn, and we'll talk a little bit more about my experiences here and how that kind of fell into the teamwork and collaboration piece.
Wow, that's hard to beat. I help get merchandise on store shelves. And in a small way, hope to help children's lives, but certainly nothing close to what Mitch does. So, my name is Bob Fredman. I'm with Big Lots Stores, again, hopefully a place where you shop because you can get great deals on everything you need for your dorm room. And that's my pitch. First of all, I thank you very much, for having me. It's great to be here. I will tell you, my only other, I guess, the knowledge of Ohio Wesleyan, 25 years before any of you were born, a teammate of mine came here to play soccer. And I live 20 miles away, and I'm sorry to say I had never been here, but kind of as I was rushing through, I did notice that it really is a beautiful campus. Mm-hmm. And what seemed like really engaged students who helped me find where this place is. So I went to Ohio State, kind of a larger but inferior school south of here. I majored in transportation and logistics, which was part of the marketing and business school at the time. Went to Case Western Reserve in Cleveland and got a master's while I was working. My first job was with a steel company that no longer exists. I was a traffic clerk. Basically, pre-computers, I would probably venture to say, because everything was paperwork being passed from one desk to the other. If we had a message to send to someone electronically, we would, type it out and then walk over to the telex room, and telexes, which was, so I guess I'm a lot older than I look, I guess. I'll leave it at that. But, what I did in college, probably most beneficial to my career, and I think a key to success was, being in a fraternity as an officer. I was the kitchen steward, so I kind of ran the kitchen in terms of the budget and making sure that everyone showed up to clean up as they were assigned. I was the Sunday morning breakfast cook, which didn't get me too many points among my fraternity brothers. I guess I'll tell you the rest of the story when we have question and answer.
Well, that one's really hard to follow. I don't know. I'm not a comedy show, so. Okay. My name's Eveline Masig, and I'm a senior HR professional at Schneider Downs. And I'm not sure if too many of you know about Schneider Downs. We are a public accounting firm originally established in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's our corporate office, but we have another office in downtown Columbus. So I'm there, and I've been there for only 4 months. So when you talk about backgrounds and how I got to where I'm at today, my background's quite different. So I have an associate's in engineering, moved on to do a 2+2 in industrial engineering at Kent State. And from there, where I was working at the time, the Timken Company, which is a large company in Canton, Ohio, really needed to have a different pedigree. So not industrial engineering, more of a material science. So very limited in my opportunities there. So I decided to go back to school, start from scratch, get a bachelor's in business, another small university, Malone University in Canton, and finished up with my master's from Walsh University. So a little different than most from an HR perspective. So what I usually tell most students when I'm talking with them or interviewing them is just think of it in like 5-year increments. So if it's something that you find interesting that you'd like to do for the next 5 years, go in that direction, because what you want today is going to be different than what you want in your 30s and different than what you want in your 40s. So when you start getting married and having children and things like that, your priorities change. So it's really important. Just try to focus in the first 5 to 10 years possibly for your major, for a job. And so that helps to not get too overwhelmed with things, because I'm a perfect example of what you start in isn't actually what you find is your passion and what you find is your strengths as you get older. But then once you find yourself, then you find what you'd like to do for the rest of your career. So let's see, I would say probably an activity or a class that I took. A lot of the HR roles, I would say, definitely in my MBA were very beneficial. The MBA I liked better than the undergraduate because it was more application. So instead of learning principles and skills, how do I apply those things? So making that correlation with what I was learning in school, and then I was actually able to apply it to my job since I was working full-time. I worked all the way through school, did not graduate with any loans, was on full scholarship my first few years, and then my employer paid for my bachelor's and my master's degrees. So very fortunate there as well. So first job, like I said, the Timken Company, Fortune 500 company in Canton, Ohio, 25,000 employees. Used to be, now it's 2 separate companies. It split in 2014. I worked for both sides of the company. At one particular point in time, I was on the Timken Company side doing customer engineering, in research and design at the research facility up by the airport. And then the last 8 years of my career at Timken, I was in corporate quality in charge of the 3 steel plants there in Canton, and then my last 3 years in HR, which was where I found to be what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So just fortunate enough that that employer allowed me to kind of venture into different areas, try different things. I did a lot of campus recruiting, being a female. I was able to recruit on Ohio State's campus. And that's kind of where I found where my passion was at. And so that's what I'm doing today for Schneider Downs. I just came from there just now. And so very rewarding for me. I love to find students that are passionate about what they'd like to do and help them to start their career. So I think that's pretty much it. This one. Oh, okay. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. So I'm Carla Mello with COSI, the Center of Science and Industry. I'm a museum educator, so I lead a career exploration program for high school students, but I'm also working with the volunteer community resources team, and I'm in charge of the college interns that come to work with COSI as well. I went to college in Brazil, São Paulo. My majors are education and biology. And definitely the most important experience for me during college was to work in a research lab. When I got into college, I had the idea that I really wanted to work with molecular biology, so I found a specific lab, convinced them to give me a position there, and worked throughout. I started working in the second year of college, and I worked till the end and a little bit after I get my major. And that taught me so much, including the fact that I was not that into research as I thought I would be. I really found a passion for education, and I started working in museums. I also love to travel and move to different places, so I actually worked in a museum in Chile as well, and then I moved here, and I'm now working with COSI. And I think that experience, that research experience really taught me how not only to be very analytical, but problem solving and critical thinking was really something that I've learned and developed during that time. And that's actually the talk that I'm going to be approaching here today. Let me see if I'm missing anything. I think I got most of it. Am I forgetting anything? So that's it.
Good evening. I'm Eric Neiman. I work at Cummins. It's probably very few people know who that is in this room, but it's one of the biggest companies in the world. It has about $30 billion in revenue and employs about 100,000 people around the world. So one of the things that I'll say, get a little off track, is you heard a little bit earlier about reaching out to alumni and networking and things with your Career Services Center. There's lots of companies that you don't know about that employ hundreds and hundreds of interns and thousands of newly hired people, and you can't possibly do it all yourself. So Cummins is a good example of a company there that probably most people in this room or even in Columbus don't know about, but yet it recruits around the world for people. In terms of my background, I graduated from Stanford University, and also went on and got a master's in business. One of the things that I would say is the most important about my experience in college, it gets back to what I said earlier about networking and doing that, is I did a lot of research with professors and got to know different students and professors and got to know them really well. And it really benefited two ways. Number one, when you start doing internships, you'll be amazed by what professors know and who they've worked for. And they can help you in terms of networking and opening doors. And also, I think a challenge is when you work with professors, it forces you to up your game a little bit, makes you to learn how to write better. Also, it's very easy as a college student to get used to dealing with college students, and I think working with a professor forces you to grow up a little bit, get ready for the real world. As I'm sure people here will tell you, it's competitive. So as much as you can interact with other adults and learn to think critically, as we've heard earlier, it's only going to help you succeed in your career. I think I answered all the... Okay, in terms of my major, I was a political science major. That's why I went back and got my MBA. In terms of what Cummins does, Cummings is primarily a business to business, so it doesn't sell anything to consumers. That's why most people don't know about it. What Cummings does is most of the trucks you see on the road, all the engines come from Cummings. The power generators that probably keep this building running, backup power, that's all from Cummings. All the railroads you see, those are engines from Cummings. A lot of the ships you see are from, so they make all sorts of different large manufacturing type of equipment. And before that, my connection to Columbus is I worked at Battelle and I worked at Victoria's Secret, so I've had a very interesting background.
Can you hear me okay? I don't want to get too close to this thing. Anyway, thank you for having me here. This is kind of unexpected. I wasn't planning to do this, but Mindy managed to recruit me about a week ago. So it's really good to see all you guys here, because this is something that I didn't have when I was in college. My name is Dana Weiscarver. I'm the Victim Services Coordinator at Delaware County Juvenile Court. I'm right up the street. We're at 140 North Sandusky Street. There's two courthouses. There's the new courthouse that was just built, and then there's a building just north of that, which houses juvenile court, the prosecutor's office, job and family services, etc. So my job there is to work with victims of juvenile crime. So and I could actually be helping some of you, in fact I have in the past, where a juvenile may have, in fact there's one right now, a juvenile had thrown stones at one of the students' cars and had dented the car. I got that information, so I've been trying to get in contact with that victim to let them know we have this person, here's the process we go through in court, and if you have any restitution or money that you had to pay out for damages, I'll help you with that. So that's my goal, is to help out victims as an advocate, as a representative in court, and that type of thing. I attended Ohio State University a little while ago. I'm not going to go there. But received a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. It was a double major. I double majored in marketing and production and operations management, which has absolutely nothing to do with being a victim advocate, which I'll get to that in a second. But my first job out of college was as a seasonal worker at Lazarus department stores. I don't know if anybody knows Lazarus, probably before your time. It's now Macy's. It's all owned by Federated, but I actually worked when there was a downtown Lazarus store. I was down there about 15 years. But all in all, it's 23 years at Macy's, Lazarus Macy's, and started out as a seasonal and fine jewelry. Ended up as an operations manager. Actually helped open the Easton store. If anybody's been to Easton Macy's, I was there when that happened. So, but it was an experience for me to get my foot in the door. I had to start from the bottom, literally as a seasonal. I wasn't even sure they were going to keep me on after that first couple of months in November, December. But they did, and moved on from there, and just kind of kept working, trying to get into the management program. Took a while. It took a while. Took quite a while, as a matter of fact. So anyway, the reason I'm going through that part of it is I want to tell you not what activity in college was the most beneficial to me. I'll tell you what would have been the most beneficial to me, and that's being in an internship program. I found after I graduated that if I would have been in an internship program, you had that ability to get your foot in the door. I was at that store, in the downtown store, and watched intern after intern come through in management, assistant management, whatever. Some Ohio State football players, who I knew a lot more than they did at the time, were coming in as managers in an internship program. And I'm looking at that and go, what was I thinking? Why was I not more involved in that? And it was a different time. There wasn't as much information back then as there is today. But that is the thing that I think is great for you guys. You're in an internship program, take advantage of this, because this is how you get your foot in the door, how you take that step. I became the Victim Services Coordinator at the court in 2008 after spending about 3.5 years, I think, as a volunteer for the CASA program. Everybody knows what the CASA program is. Court-appointed special advocates for children in abuse, neglect, and dependency cases. You're like an independent advocate for kids in those cases to try to be an extra pair of eyes for the judge. But I was in there, and the judge basically, I was kind of working with him, and he recommended me for this position, and I went and said, this would be great. It's exactly what I wanted to do. So at really the age of 54, I finally found out what I wanted to do with my life. Seriously, I had no, they tell you we go into business administration a lot of times because you don't know what you want to do. That was me. I did not know what I wanted to do. But I will tell you, what I got out of that is a lot, from that business degree, was a lot of structure, a lot of things I could apply towards what I'm doing now. It was great with the operations management at Lazarus Macy's, but it's also helped me develop the victim services program since I've been there, and it's really been an experience.
What is the thing that really stands out, that really strikes you, like this person has really got it together? This is an awesome either candidate, or this is a really awesome intern. This person has really got it together. What is it about them? What do they do? What do they say? Or how do they present themselves? Eric?
So a little bit, I have a big staff, a lot of people who report to me, a multi-million-dollar budget. So interns are not necessarily the most important thing for me every day. I know it's important for everybody in this room, and it's key to, as you've heard, it's absolutely critical. So as Mindy said, you have to make a really good impression, because I'm probably going to give you about a minute of my time and evaluate you very seriously. If you can't pass my sniff test in a minute, I have too many other people who work for me, too many other crises to deal with. So what do I want to see in the first minute? I think your appearance, I'm looking for your appearance is really critical. I want somebody, you don't have to wear the nicest clothes, but I want somebody who's going to know that understands what a business environment is, they know how to fit in. I want to see a nice handshake. And if you can, you know, when I'm thinking about it, you're interacting with people who can be up to 70 years old. And I want to make sure that if I'm bringing you in my staff, you understand those social norms. And then probably the most important thing that you need is you better have a 30-second introduction or something that impresses me. So definitely get your story. I don't want to hear a 5-minute long, here's what I did since I was in kindergarten. I want to know what leadership skills you have, how are you going to help the company, what can you do to make that I should hire you. So I would once again just emphasize, work with your career services people and really get that, make sure you have that introductory spiel down really, really well. And I'm sure other people have different things, but that's, to me, that's critical. If you can't explain to me why you want to be hired in less than a minute, you probably won't have much of a chance.
I would just add, can you hear me? Should I do this? Know the organization that you're applying. Like, do that research. I think I actually had, this wasn't an intern position, this was actually someone wanting a job, and they wrote the wrong organization on their cover letter. It's easy to mix up because we have been called Big Boys and Girls Club many times. It's a real organization, but that's not who you're applying to. So you might want to, you know, just do your research on the organization. And I would say for interns, we've had a few. I will tell you the good and the bad, but that passion that you're going to show me, we are passionate in our jobs. We love what we do, especially you have to because we don't get paid a lot to do it. So there's got to be something else that's driving us, and it's that passion. So we need people that are going to also show that same amount of passion that we're showing.
Following up on that, especially working at a nonprofit as COSI is, we are mission driven. So we want to as mentioned, we are working with a passion. We have a goal. And we expect that intern to understand what the mission is, because it can be found in our website. You can just research about it and know what we are all about. And so a passion about that, but also for internship specifically, a willingness to learn. Be prepared to learn. So we are always looking at what questions the candidate is asking during the interview. Hopefully those questions show how much they have studied about COSI and what they've learned, but also shows the willing to learn more about what we are doing there and what we're expecting for that position. And it goes a lot of also with the body language and how they present themselves. We are not expecting anybody to be like business and prepare like all set up for the interview. We are fairly informal environment at COSI, but we do expect some like eye contact, confidence, and be prepared, really prepare, knowing about what COSI is all about, and come with very good questions.
Yeah, one other thing, a theme that you hear, and Bob can talk about this too, and I think that the point that was made, really prepare yourself and understand the organization, and the whole thing about appearance and things like that, is Bob can talk about this. Both of us have worked at L Brands, and if you're going to go interview at Abercrombie & Fitch, find out what they wear there. Don't show up in a suit. You show up in a suit, you're going to be leaving the room in 10 minutes, and it's the same thing with other corporations. And I know I'm harping on this, but it says a lot, as we've heard, that you've done your research. There's ways we all have our own clues, and make sure you've done your research, that you understand the organization and how they dress and what they're looking for. Because if you don't do that, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of other people who've done that, and you're putting yourself at a significant disadvantage.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too is that first impression is so important, and it's visual. Generally, it's visual. You're going to be looking at the eye contact, the firm handshake, those types of things. The confidence, a smile. If you're sweating and you're really nervous, you're going to know it. Everybody knows you're nervous in an interview. Everybody knows that. What you have to do is, in my opinion, practice. If you have trouble with that, practice. And just know that these are the things that you've got to do to have that initial first impression, so someone's going to listen to you after that. That first minute, like you said, that's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, I really don't have much to add to that. I mean, those are the things that I'm looking for as well, to make sure that you understand the company. Why do you want to work here? You're presenting yourself professionally, and you can articulate your ideas clearly. If you're nervous, that's fine, but be able to complete your thoughts. Just don't drop off a comment because you're so nervous and you forget what you're talking about. That's really not good. One thing I would suggest, I don't know if you do here, is do a video recording, like a mock audit or a mock interview. Okay, yes. And then get critiqued. Yeah, and then they get critiqued. Yeah, exactly. So.
Well, with what I do, a number of our interns are international, actually. So, while I'd say we focus, or look beyond sometimes initial communication issues and really try to get to the heart and understand what the person is. So I think it's both what's inside as well as outside that counts. What really impresses me is curiosity. And I don't mean ask a million questions, but very targeted, very specific, focused questions on, if you're brought on as an intern or in your first job to do something, what gets you to solve the problem? What kind of context and background do you need about the business and about our customers that help you solve that? So again, it's curiosity that I would certainly put in the forefront.
I can take that because I had that today. You have to actually be able to understand the application of the class that you've taken and understand through the job description or whatever job you're applying for some of the requirements for that job and have examples of the application. Okay, so make sure you have some star stories, I always say, some stories that you can talk about that you actually led or did, and so you can do that through you know, projects or something that you've done at school that would apply to that particular job.
I think another way to think about it too is we're probably, all of us on this panel, when we're looking, majors are important, but it's not the most important thing. It's examples, as we just heard. So if I'm a history major and you're applying for a job, well, if I'm a history major, you say, well, what does that have to do? Well, you know what? I understand how to research. I know how to do secondary research. I've done group projects. I know how to lead group projects. You start saying things that I think, as we've heard before, all of a sudden it doesn't matter that you're a history major. I know that, look, you have good communication skills. You can read you could read projects. I know you know how to research. Oh, you wrote an honors thesis. That means you must know how to write pretty well. Those are the type of things that I would try and emphasize rather than saying I'm a history major or I'm a data analytics. And the other thing I will say is be careful about that too. I mean, if the job says you have to be experienced in data analytics and you've never taken a data analytics class, don't apply. And I think you see that because what ends up happening in a company, particularly a big company, he's applied for 5 positions. He's not serious. He's just applying everywhere. You probably see that too. Mm-hmm. So, make sure that you pick and choose wisely on what you want to apply for, because you got it. Companies are sophisticated enough; they pick up on that real quickly.
I'm Rachel. I'm a professional biology major. I was wondering how we go about asking for internships when we don't have presidential experience. We don't have as much to put on the resume. Because I'm looking for, I applied for 15 different summer internships for research. Last summer I didn't accept it because it's such a competitive street. How do you emphasize what you are doing?
I think it goes a little bit with the response for the major too. You need to know how to translate the experiences that you have into the requirements that position is asking. So if you develop any sort of project during college, or if you work it could be corporations, but you were managing a project or those are the things that you need to highlight and make that connection. Even when you're writing your resume, you can put in terms of what you achieved and not just list the positions that you had. You can say, oh, I work in this, but I developed this, and this while I was there. And that's how you make that connection with the requirements that position has. Of course, also, as mentioned before, make sure that that position doesn't have a requirement of a specific amount of years in college, because sometimes you're pushing yourself into a situation that you're going to get a no. But there's a lot of positions out there. We have a lot of internships at COSI that do not require a specific, you don't need to be in a certain track of a major to get those positions. So keep an eye open for that. But primarily it's just to understand how you can make that translation between what the experience that you did have and how that can be applied for that position.
I would say that networking, though, also is key. If you're looking at a particular company, research on LinkedIn, like who works there and what's their second and third connection. Do you know somebody? Don't be afraid to pick up the phone, say, hey, can I have some coffee with you, and go and talk with people and let them know what you're doing. You'd be amazed at how people will be very helpful just by asking, please help me. I moved from Canton to Columbus with no network whatsoever, and I had 3 job offers before I was even moved down here by simply doing that. So use your current network to get to the position that you want to be. You have to be a little creative in that.
And also the other thing that I would recommend is if you're not getting what you're looking for, go talk to your career services center. Maybe you're not interviewing well. Maybe there's something on the resume, you don't have the right buzzwords. You have professionals around you. And also, if you're not getting it and you think you have a good interview, you can usually call the person up on the phone, and we're not going to spend, we might, if we like you and you didn't get it, we could be willing to go out to lunch with you and talk to you. I mean, it really depends on your approach. Most of us, all of us, want to see students succeed. We know that's part of being a successful manager is we need to groom the next group of people, so we're willing to work with you, but if you never call and ask, you know, we're not going to call and talk to you and say, oh, well, let me tell you why you didn't get that. So, you know, take the initiative. And sometimes maybe they don't hire you this year, but who knows? So you do that next year, they'll have a better position for you.
It's also be creative. There are a lot of experiences. You know, I've seen people. You know, leadership in sports. You know, leadership in church activities, hobbies. You know, just things that you've been involved with that helped taught you skills, similar to what we talked about when we went to college. And you can translate that, as Eric said, you know, into tangible skills that people are looking for, and maybe rely less maybe on the academics.